I'm sorry to see that our partner from the EDU is not here, and so maybe they have not been sufficiently active either with this process.
But his plane is late. He will arrive hopefully later.
Very good. Glad to hear that. But the fact remains that the directive, if it is passed, will create great problems for many other fields of sound recordings. And there has been no discussion at all how, for instance, the use it or lose it clause will be applied to archival radio programs. The copyright owner, which is the broadcasting company, should reissue the recording within 1 year of the 5th-year term. But what is reissuing, making available in broadcasting? Is it a rebroadcast or whatever? And I think the proposed directive is a typical example of how legislation which extends copyright afterwards, retroactively, will always create problems. Let me give you just one practical example. Suppose that the producer of radio drama in Finland in 1960 decided to use a bit of recorded music in the drama. And you know all European broadcasters have produced a huge amount of radio dramas, especially before the time of the rise of television. In 1960, sound recordings had no copyright protection in Finland or the Scandinavian countries. And actually not in most EU member states. So there was no need to document the label and the performance of the record which was used in the radio drama. The protection of sound recordings was introduced into Finnish copyright law and many other European countries in 1961. And initially the term of protection was 25 years only. Since then the term has already been extended to 50 years, and in half century we have moved from no protection of sound recordings first to 25 years and then to 50 years. I have no problem with that, but copyright is not just the right to get paid when your creations are used. Copyright is an exclusive right, and no one can use your works or your recordings without your permission. What happens to the radio drama made in 1960 if the broadcaster wants to publish it on the internet today, which would be a great thing? The Finnish broadcasting company already has a contract with the authors, with the actors, and the other participants in the drama, but not with the record company. It cannot have a contract because we don't know what the record company is. And even if we knew it, we have trouble getting contracts just with record companies. They are the most difficult negotiating parties in the copyright business. But let us suppose that we do not know it. If the law stays as it is now, the problem would be solved in 2011 when the recording would be in the public domain. That problem would be over. But if the extension is passed, we have to wait until 2056. This example may seem trivial, but you can multiply it by 10,000 and you get some idea of the scope of the problem in the European radio archives alone. It is a good example of what I would like to call copyright pollution. The way copyright creates problems and makes some materials inaccessible. It's not a question that somebody would not like to pay a fair price for the use of the work. The problem is that the law is already so complex, and the extension will make it even more complex, so that in many cases it will be impossible to clear the rights. And in the case I mentioned above, just 1 minute of an unidentifiable recording will contaminate the whole radio drama. It cannot be used because all the rights have not been cleared. And if there are enough of recordings like that in the archive, the whole archive will become contaminated. It will be very difficult to make a plan for the exploitation of this material. This problem is recognized in the directive, and there's a use it or lose it clause which requires producers to make all recordings accessible to the public within 1 year of the expiration of the present 50-year term. But the clause is drafted so poorly that it will have a little practical effect. It would, at 10 years from now, if the extension is passed, it will be very difficult to know which recordings have extended protection and which have only the 50 years, because there's no requirement to register the republication anywhere. The recording can be accessible for 1 month anywhere in the world, and the term is extended. And there's no document of this afterwards, if I read the directive correctly. I would readily agree that copyright law is important to our society, but I think we're also beginning to see that too much copyright can be just as bad as too little copyright. And if the extension is passed now, its full effect will not be held until the year 2105, 95 years from today, from the year when it will come into effect. And I'm very worried that our great-great-grandchildren then will recognize that we have created a system which perhaps not as serious as global warming, but works in the same way. It creates problems very slowly, which multiply, and it's 95 years from now, it will be impossible to reverse this.
Thank you, Mr. Gronow. Your last